and let us all do we can to build a better future.
Folks, let's talk about a funeral we're going to go to. It's a funeral for the Democratic Party. They're done. They're over. It's over. Truly, it's over. And I want to give a real special shout out to Briahna Joy Gray, who was on The Rising, who really gave a no-nonsense analysis of the party of FDR and JFK. Gone are the days when there was some audacity of hope. That's right, Barack Obama. I'm quoting you as well. When there was this idea that maybe the Democrats could do something. And in theory, they could have. Theoretically, they were in positions of power and points where they had the majority, where they could have made the lives of working class Americans easier. But again, because they're part of the neoliberal system controlled by the corporations, Wall Street executives, hedge fund managers, bankers, top 1%, they never will. They'll say things you want to hear. They'll tweet things out. They'll make you feel comfortable. They will do these rallies where you feel like you're special, but in all reality, they don't give a damn about you. What do I mean? Well, shout out again to Briahna Joy Gray, who really spoke the truth. These are 8 minutes of truth about the Democrats, who they are, and why we need to stop respecting them as a political party. And before vote blue, no matter who types in, same goes for the Republican Party. But the thing is, the Democrats have this coming because the fact that they could have easily overwhelmed the GOP, they could have. Well, they deserve this slap in the mouth. So let's play it for our viewers.
Briahna, what's on your radar?
I don't know how to sugarcoat this, Robbie, so I'll just say it. It seems clear that the Democratic Party is over. I saw the writing on the wall and left after the Obama years. He was probably the best the party had to offer, and he revealed himself to be a truly.
He wasn't. He was a puppet. He was just a conservative Republican.
Disappointing character. You could drive a Bronco through the gap between his campaign promises and reality. And 14 years after he promised hope and change, we still have no campaign finance reform. Roe isn't codified. And instead of using his incredible political gifts to advance the interests of the communities he was supposed to represent, he's now angling to buy a basketball team. I guess it's easier to crush a future strike if you own a franchise. Now, that's not to say he did nothing. It's meaningful, truly, to not be denied health insurance because of a pre-existing condition. It matters that 35 million Americans got insurance in the first place through the ACA, but it wasn't enough. I was hopeful that an independent senator from Vermont might right the ship. Bernie stood up to Barack Obama when he threatened to cut Social Security. He truly was unbought by corporate money and was willing to call out the banks that destroyed American homeowners in 2008, even while Barack Obama was consulting with those banks to pick his cabinet. But even Bernie failed to take the type of stand that could have rescued poor and working class people from the corporate duopoly.
And let's also address something else about Bernie Sanders' campaign. Not once, but twice, there was election fraud. 2016 and in 2020, the Democrats denied him the nomination, which he willingly just turned a blind eye to. Let's not forget, of all times, polling stations were shut down, lack of paper ballots, people being removed from the election roster, so much more. Delegates going to his rival Clinton or Biden in the 2016-2020 respectively. I mean, it's madness. And plus, with all the super delegates, yeah, Bernie could have done something. He should have really left the party, but he didn't.
Push come to shove, when he should have been fighting for our lives at the start of a pandemic, he told America that Biden would be a good president, that he wasn't corrupt, and he endorsed him within days of dropping out of the race, declining to even withhold his endorsement for anything at all. The populist left is such a non-entity that it couldn't go 24 hours without bending the knee to liberal know-nothings, withdrawing a letter, the most milquetoast critique of Biden's policy toward Russia-Ukraine. The letter didn't ask to withdraw aid at all. It merely asked, Oliver Twist style, please, sir, may I have some peace? And progressives still couldn't stick the landing. But despite all of that, libs are gearing up to blame powerless progressives for what they anticipate will be a disastrous midterm result. Here's Chuck Todd this week on MSNBC.
If Democrats come up short in some of these places, I think there's going to be a lot of finger pointing. Progressives are going to take some heat for forcing some certain nominees in certain states. that may have been less electable than other nominees could have been, the defund the police movement, all of this.
I'm sorry, which precarious Democratic candidate said they wanted to defund the police? Was it Fetterman, the guy who famously chased down a black man vigilante style at gunpoint because he thought he'd committed a crime? He hadn't committed a crime. Or Stacey Abrams, who after, flirting with actual progressivism for about half a second, has run hard on fund the police harder, even though it's probably costing her black male votes in Georgia? Midterms haven't even happened yet. And the Democratic Party gatekeepers, whose purpose is to run cover for the complete and total political malfeasance of liberals, are already in excuse-making mode.
So let's pause right here. This is how pathetic the entire Democratic Party has become, and all these sycophants that carry water for this political party. If you've donated to the Democratic Party, if you've fundraised or canvassed for any of these Democratic politicians, I am so sorry that you have been made into a puppet. It's time to cut your strings. Lauren, your thoughts? Because again, there's so much more to really take apart about this midterm election cycle. And we here at Heartland's Media got a lot of flack from a lot of people saying, oh, well, you're just helping out the Republicans. The Democrats did this to themselves. I didn't do a goddamn thing.
Well, I mean, because all we really do here is point out the flaws in their argument, point out the leaks in their boat. We didn't put them there. We're just like, hey, the boat's leaking. We caught you in a lie. We caught you in a hypocritic moment. And then, we get yelled at for mentioning that. Yeah. And it's like, and I was like fully on board with Stacey Abrams back when, she was first getting started. She seemed like she was doing a really, really, it seemed like, again, like with AOC, like with the other members of the squad, it really seems like, oh yeah, this person gets it. She really understands what her constituents want. She understands us. She understands us as people. She knows what to do. And then again, I don't know. I'm not sure what happens as soon as you actually land the gig, even if all your ideals go out the window in exchange for what's easier, I suppose. It's like, well, I spent all of this time arguing to get here and now I'm done. I don't feel like arguing anymore. And it feels like people get there and give up. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they just, they're suddenly like, oh, suddenly I have money. This changes everything for me. I don't know. Like, it's depressing. It's disappointing. And like she said, the Dems are disappointing us right now. And like you said, they're doing it to themselves.
What I've come to learn, this is something again that has angered me a lot, is that look, in 2016, I was a Bernie Sanders supporter. I was there at the Wells Fargo Center, and I felt that if Bernie was going to run again for a second time, this time he would be ready. 2018, got to keep it honest, I was really happy for the squad. I think a lot of us were. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of us were really like, they get it. Maybe there's a chance. Maybe there truly is a chance. And then comes 2020, and I look on the show, I really thought that the Sanders campaign was organized and ready for a fight. I thought the squad was ready and organized for a fight, that we were not going to see a repeat of 2016. And there was so much working for the progressive movement to really, really bring the fight to the Democratic establishment, to corporate media. It was all there, and they threw it off the table. They snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. And it's disheartening. But I think more or less, if Americans are going to wake up to the fact that nobody in Washington, D.C. respects you or works for you, this midterm election cycle has to be something to jolt their consciousness up. But again, corporate media, our political system, has done a phenomenal job in brainwashing a lot of people. And the thing is, now you have the so-called gatekeepers, people like Cenk, who say Bernie and Bass believe working within the Democratic Party system. And what has that gotten us? Nearly nothing. Just wall-to-wall corruption. Bernie said his friend, Joe Biden, would get us $15 minimum wage and much more. His friend screwed us, and he didn't say a word about it. Now, the thing is, what I remember about Cenk Uygur is that he went to bed with the Democratic establishment. 2016, he got Bernie Sanders on his show, promoted all these progressive talking points, and then got that Katzenberg cash, $20 million from Clinton donor, Democratic donor, Katzenberg, that $20 million for TYT. Had members of the squad on the show, which now no longer show up, create an organization called Justice Democrats that failed. And then you got Rick Carceru gets a TYT founder's endorsement. Bernie's heading to LA tomorrow to campaign for Karen Bass. Yes, Karen Bass' main message seems to be that she is an establishment Democrat, no interest, but yet he told us that we got to vote for Clinton. He told us we got to vote for Biden to stop Trump. Who thinks things in LA are generally fine? They're not, and will work the system better. The problem is the system. There's nothing but incompetence and corruption here. We need change. Again, this from the same guy who, again, founded the Justice Democrats. And he could have, if he wanted to, do something different. But then again, it's hard for anyone to respect the Democratic Party. To our audience, hey, type 1 if you still respect the remnants or what remains of the progressive movement in the Democratic Party. Type 1 if you still respect them. Type 2 if you don't. Let's have democracy here in our chat. So, look, I want to bring up these 3 videos that we played before in the past, and now looking at them over again, I can only come up to the conclusion that 2022 is going to be a slaughter for the Democrats. And it didn't have to be. It really didn't have to be. Take, for example, here's Bernie Sanders. He's getting rightfully burned by Fox News, but check it out, folks.
Good things, and he will make that decision himself. Do you plan to run again? That's something, I haven't made that decision.
My friend may run, but I haven't decided if I'm going to run. Tony?
I love what he always says, that friend of mine line. Now, I think that was the line he said about Elizabeth Warren. She's a friend of mine, and she's a friend, and she's a friend of mine, so she's a friend. It was a very funny line. He runs, he doesn't run. It makes no difference to me. I don't know why he thinks that the Democratic Party is now going to turn around and love him. How many more times does the Democratic Party have to screw him over before he gets the understanding that it's not them, it's him? They're just not that into him, or have they now just...
And that's important to remember, folks, because the Democratic Party did everything they could to screw him over, that he willingly let happen. See, the Democrats would rather lose to Trump than have someone like Bernie Sanders win a primary or a general election. And I want to pull up this video here, too, where, again, look what's going to happen.
Because they feel like they can get people like up in arms about Trump, and they know that people like Bernie Sanders talking points. So like they wouldn't have as many excuses not to do stuff and change stuff. But like with Trump, they can just make people mad. They can be like, oh, look what he said. Look what he said this time. Look what he did.
Now,
that's why they'd rather have him win.
Well, the thing is, Trump was very good for corporate media's viewership, but also Trump was very good to fundraise off of. Trump was the golden goose for the Democratic Party. And the thing is, the Democrats didn't learn their lesson, or in fact, they know the lesson. So here's what the Democrats are going to do to win the midterms: to fund Trump-like Republican candidates. Shout out again to Case Study QB. By the way, today's his birthday, folks. So
happy birthday!
So if you haven't said happy birthday to Case Study QB yet on Twitter, if you're on Twitter, be sure to say happy birthday to Case Study QB. He's wrongly being censored on social media. Happy birthday, Case Study QB. So here's this video that I found on his Twitter account. A case study, no pun intended, of the DCCC strategy to fund Trumpsters to help them win their primaries so they could lose in a general to Democrats, also known as the Pied Piper strategy, which Hillary used against Trump. Will they never learn? So let's play this video.
He's a former Trump administration official who's called the results of the 2020 election mathematically impossible and wrote as a college student in the early 2000s, the U.S. has suffered as a result of women's suffrage, now insisting it was satirical.
Thank you, President Trump.
Of course he is.
Trump-endorsed Gibbs is also someone who the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee spent about $450,000 on for this ad.
Too conservative for West Michigan.
The amount was more than Gibbs had spent on his entire campaign at the time, seemingly designed to help Gibbs with Trump voters and boost him as a weaker general election candidate than the incumbent Republican, Peter Meijer.
Do you feel someone like Gibbs is a much more beatable opponent than Meijer?
I wouldn't say that necessarily. At the end of the day, Republicans decided who their standard bearer was going to be in this race, and they chose Mr. Gibbs.
The dynamic came at the expense of Congressman Myers, who lost the primary by fewer than 4,000 votes.
I never expected the other side to as well double down in a cynical ploy to put forward the candidate they think is less electable.
These are U.S. seats.
Some Democratic voters in the Grand Rapids area district weren't fans either.
Politics sucks. I think that that was money that was wasted. Tactically, I guess I get it.
Well, it bothered me, and I know it bothered others.
But some GOP voters don't think Gibbs is the easier candidate at all, appearing at a Michigan rally alongside Donald Trump Jr., Kellyanne Conway, and others.
Tell me about why.
Oh, I mean, I think he is very strong, and I think he's going to be really hard to beat.
Many of Gibbs' supporters feel they lost their country in 2020.
We are in a civilizational fight. It's not so much Democrat versus Republican. It's crazy versus normal.
For Democrats,
We need every vote.
the stakes are similar.
This election is a referendum on.
So enough of that right there, because again, they're saying the same thing, again, how Democrats are fundraising Republicans. But when confronted by this, I'll just play only a few short minutes of this. Again, shout out to Case Study QB. He's wrongly being censored on Twitter. What's the censorship about? Well, unfortunately, Case Study QB's Twitter account has been hit hard by Twitter because Twitter is saying that he's posting up controversial material. So if you go, if you're not logged into Twitter and you try and look for his Twitter account, Twitter will say, "Oh, you can't view this. You have to be logged in." And then to watch any of the content or look at any of the tweets, you have to say, "Yes, I want to view it." What's the stuff he's posting up? Not adult material, not violence, but clips from corporate media. Clips from corporate media. So thank you, Twitter. Hey, Elon, listen, buddy, you want to do me a favor? Stop censoring. Since you're in charge of Twitter, Elon, remove the censorship off of Case Study QB's Twitter account, okay? Do that for me. Anyways, more on that. All right, Elon, you want to do good?
I don't think he cares about doing good.
Yeah, anyways. But hey, do this favor for me. Case Study QB, he's family. Audience, type 3 in the chat if Case Study QB is family. Type 4 if you damn right he's family. So there you go. Yeah, exactly. It's a win-win
again.
Yes, this is the head of the DCCC. So when confronted about the DCCC funding Trump like Republicans, watch him do a flip-flop.
Congressman, good morning. We are now just 5 weeks or so from Election Day, and the DCCC, the organization you chair, received a lot of attention this primary season, including some criticism from Democrats for funding some Republican candidates, extreme Republican candidates, under the theory that they might be easier to beat in November. Some in your own party criticized that, saying that's too risky, that we might give them a chance to win, and it looks like we're promoting candidates who are anti-democracy. As we stand now, the stretch run upon us. Do you defend that decision? Do you think it's a bet that's paying off?
Mr. Lemire, you just said, and I have enormous respect for you, but you just said that we funded Republican candidates. That is flat out wrong. We attacked a single Republican candidate with a general election ad that we ran 2 weeks early. And
that's a lie. That is a straight up lie. The DCCC has been supporting Trump-like Republican candidates in this midterm election cycle. This is a fact. Corporate media talks about it. We've all talked about it. So the thing is, the Democratic Party knows what it's doing. Is Briahna Joy Gray wrong for saying the Democratic Party's dead? No, she's absolutely correct. Jimmy Dore has been correct. Hardlens Media has been correct. Convo Couch, correct. RBN, correct. So many people calling out the Democratic establishment for what it is. In my opinion, this will probably be the biggest beating the Democratic Party has gotten in any kind of election cycle in our entire lifetime. The Democrats are going to lose seats, unfortunately. They haven't inspired confidence. And just a short reminder, too, just to show you how strong the Democratic Party really is. When the Supreme Court said they were going to overturn Roe v. Wade, they had a month-and-a-half notice from a leaked memo to do something about it. They didn't. Lauren, your thoughts?
I feel like I mentioned this the last time that we talked about about how the Democrats do that. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't seem like a gamble that would pay off, especially since they saw how it worked in 2016, where they lost and they got Trump into office because of that. It's like, people clearly will vote for that kind of candidate. So like, why, instead of focusing on your own people, are you going to focus on somebody that you think your guy can beat? It's like, we're not that impressed with the Democratic Party right now. So building up somebody else in any way is just not a good way to get your people elected. And I don't understand why they think it is. It doesn't track. It doesn't make sense to me. That one guy was like, I get it, the tactics. It doesn't make sense tactically. It makes no sense tactically to do that at all. And I don't know why they keep doing it. It has proven to not work over and over and over again, because Republicans and Trump supporters go out and vote. They do that. And Democrats and Democratic supporters tend to not. They just don't have as big of a voter turnout. So like, why do you think that building up somebody else on the other side at the detriment to your own people, how is that going to help you out? That's not going to get your people out to vote. It's just going to get people who do agree with that kind of rhetoric out to the polling stations faster.
Agreed. By the way, folks, again, according to all data from previous midterms, all midterms have been low voter turnouts. This is a fact. This isn't a debate.
Yeah.
This is the truth.